Welcome back, you guys. This is Nathan Daly, and we have another breakdown. Listen, this is out of Kansas City, Missouri. This is a very, very, very tragic situation. Very sad. A lot to kind of like digest involving what took place. You know, this incident happened on the 13th of April, you guys, and people are upset, rightfully so. A 16-year-old boy by the name of Ralph Yarl, he was shot in the head, shot in the arm. He was shot twice by the suspect. The suspect is an 85-year-old white male. You know, and what's crazy about this story, you guys, he was shot because he rang the man's doorbell, right? So a lot of people are saying, hey, listen, this is racist. This is a racial component involved in this situation. The police didn't investigate properly. They dragged their feet. It's almost like they didn't want to charge anybody. It was very cut and dry. You guys, I'm going to bring some context to it, so bear with me, right? For those who are not familiar with this case, I'm going to play a quick little clip from the news so you can get like a better understanding of what happened for those who are not familiar with all the details. And then I'm going to answer some of these crazy questions because I'm going to tell you, a lot of you guys aren't too far off with how you feel. I'm not going to lie. And for those who don't know, I'm a 13-year law enforcement veteran, you guys. So these things, I'm constantly dissecting these type of videos and bringing some perspective to it for those who are curious about what really takes place behind these police departments. And is this a racial component, right? The state prosecutor stated that there was a racial component involved in this, but he did not specify what exactly that is. I don't know why. And it also leads to why they were seeking these particular charges. So the suspect is Andrew Lester, right? Andrew Lester. I'll bring up a photo of Andrew so you can see who he is. This is Andrew Lester, you guys, 85 years old. You know, that's going to bring up some issues as well in this case as far as, you know, his mental capacity, his age. You know, there are a couple things that you can do to kind of like circumvent around that. So we're going to talk about that real quick. So this is the suspect here. As of today, you guys, well, correction, as of yesterday, he has been arrested and he is in custody. A lot of the frustration between this case was that he was not arrested, right? And who is the victim? The victim is 16-year-old Ralph Yarl. He is still fighting for his life, you guys. He is out of the hospital, if I'm not mistaken. And there is a link for his GoFundMe account as well, you guys. I'll put that in the description of the video. So please go and support. Please keep the family in your prayers so that he has a healthy and speedy recovery. So let's look at the news clip to give you a well-rounded kind of view as to what happened, and then we'll break down some of the other details, references, charges, and the investigation and police procedure just in general. And here we go.
The shooting of 16-year-old Ralph Yarl.
The Clay County prosecutor now says this crime had a racial component. Here's what we know. 84-year-old Andrew D. Lester is wanted on 2 felony counts: first-degree assault and armed criminal action. He is not in custody. There is a warrant that is out for his arrest right now. Clay County prosecutor Zach Thompson says that Lester shot the teenager through his glass front door, once in the head, once in the arm. The prosecutor says that Yarl never stepped inside Lester's house.
All right, let me pause it. What is he being charged with, you guys? A Class A felony assault, which in Kansas is equivalent to attempted murder. All right, so just to be clear, that carries a sentence of between 10 to 30 years up to life. So this is attempted murder charge that Andrew, the suspect, has been charged with, along with criminal, I think it's criminal possession of a firearm or something to that effect. That gets a sentence of between 3 to 15 years. Now you hear them say that there's a racial component. They didn't describe what that racial component is, so we don't know. What I will say is Kansas does have a hate crime statute, And the DA's like, well, we're not using the hate crime statute because it is a lesser offense as it relates to how long the sentence is that they can actually, I guess you would say, go for. My problem with that logic, I think it's stupid. I think regardless, at the end of the day, if the charge applies, they need to apply the charge. I think it's appropriate to charge them with a hate crime, right? And then because when the jury sees this, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and with juries in reference to charging someone. A lot can happen during trial, you guys, and so I believe that if the charge applies, you need to apply it, because things can be reduced, things can be like, well, we don't think this applies for this crime, and this is how some people end up getting away scot-free because of technicalities. So the charge needs to be on the books, period. If there's a racial component, it needs to be on the books. For them to mention it, that means that the racism in this shooting was very plain as day, and it was obvious enough for them to make the comment, but not so obvious for them to not say it out loud, right? Like, I'm curious to know what was it that they were able to prove that a racial component, this had something to do with race. Now, to us, it seems very obvious, but, you know, again, at the end of the day, you might believe it to be true, but you still have to have the evidence to support it, right? So that's kind of the thing. So moving on quickly, what did they say, right? Ralph goes up to the door. He rings the doorbell, you guys. And then the suspect describes in the affidavit that he heard the doorbell. He grabs his gun. Mind you, this is around 10:30 at night. He goes to the door. He opens the door. And as he opens the door, the solid door, there is a storm door, which is an all-glass door. Andrew shoots 2 times through the glass door, shooting Ralph once in the head and then once in the arm. Some are reporting that he shot him once in the head and then opened the door, stood over him, and then shot him again. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that is, some people are reporting that. I just don't know. I haven't heard them confirm that. I haven't heard the prosecutor confirm that, but those are the 2 narratives. And at that point, Ralph pulled himself off the ground, you guys, bleeding, shot. He runs to a neighbor's house and has them call for 911. That's how this thing transpired. So when did this happen? You guys, this happened, I know I said I was going to play this, but this happened on the 13th, all right? Today's the 18th. So what happened, right? Why 4 days later? 4 days later, the suspect's finally being charged. That's one of the big things that people have an issue with. And then along with the fact that the victim, Ralph, was indiscriminately just shot, right? And we're looking at heavily that this was based off his skin color. And so that's where this thing is looking really, really suspicious and really racist. So let me finish this news clip and then we'll dive into the rest of the dialogue.
Yarl accidentally went to the wrong house to pick up his siblings, mixing up Northeast 115th Terrace and Northeast 115th Street.
We have team coverage of these updates. KMBC 9.
So for those who kind of missed that, the issue is that Ralph went to the wrong house, right? He was supposed to be out there to go pick up, I believe, his siblings, and he got the street numbers confused and he went to the wrong house, and then he was shot, right? So that's kind of how this happened.
As Matt Evans is looking into how the FBI may now get involved.
First, let's go to KMBC 9's Jackson Kurtz up in Liberty after hearing from the Clay County prosecutor within the last hour. Jackson?
Yeah, we got a lot more details from that press conference, all in this probable cause here that gives us more details about what happened that night. I'm just going to tell you about a little what's in here. We now know that this suspect is Andrew Lester, that he laid down to bed is what he told police when he was taken into quarters to give a recorded statement. He was laying down in bed when he heard the doorbell. Lester stated that's when he picked up his gun to answer the door. Now, once he went up to the door, he had an interior door, exterior door, opened that. He saw a black male approximately 6 feet tall at his doorstep. He shot twice within a few seconds. Lester says no words were exchanged during the incident and that the male had not been to his house before. That male, we now know, Ralph Yarl, Lester was visibly upset, they say. Here's what Clay County prosecutors had to say.
So the thing is, what's the issue here? The suspect tells the police that I went to the door and I saw a black man. I saw a black man standing 6 feet tall. You know, there you have it. There you have it. You know, only in this country is black skin considered to be dangerous. You know, and it's a racist mindset to have, to where a person's skin color makes you feel in fear for your safety, for your life, to the point where you shoot without asking questions. Where's the threat? You know, and before, matter of fact, let me just get into it, right? The news clip, they're going to go about some stuff, but let me just get into it because this pisses me off. And this case reminds me of Ahmaud Arbery, you know, where you could just see someone jogging and just assume they committed a crime because the person's black. It has to be this guy. Because why? Because he's black. You know, and I think the dangers of, you know, not realizing, listen, this gentleman is 85 years old. You guys, he's been around. He's been around. You know, and there is a dangerous racist mentality that hasn't died out yet in this country. And, you know, as generations progress, you know, some of us are getting out of it and some of them are still being hand-me-downed, right? People are still passing down that same ignorance to their children. You know, for him to make a statement that I saw the black man, right, 16-year-old boy, and that was enough for him to not ask questions, but to shoot on sight. You guys, you could say you're afraid. The law doesn't support that. You know, what did the police find out? That there was no forced entry, right? That the suspect acknowledged that he rang the doorbell. So damn, you just shoot after someone is ringing the doorbell? Where's the fear? Your fear was because he was black. Because he was black, you thought he meant to do you harm. The law doesn't support your stupidity. I think, what does this look like, right? As a challenge. You guys, people are going to use his age as an excuse. You know, what are they going to say? Dementia. They're going to say he's not wrapped too tight. He's old. You look at his face, right? Like the guy looks, I mean, look at him. His reasoning for shooting him was that he was black. I got my gun, I went to the door, and through the glass, I saw a black man standing 6 foot tall. I said, well, goddamn, pow, pow. What could he possibly want but to harm me at 10 o'clock at night? Who taught you that, sir? Who taught you that? No. Who taught you that? You know, the age argument's going to be an argument they're going to try to make. How do you alleviate that? You know, as investigators, when you're looking into these things, you know, you're bringing these people in for an interview. You have to gauge their mental faculties. You know, we would ask questions like, hey, are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol? What's your age? What's your highest level of education? You guys, you know, we before you interview someone, you're actually asking them these things because, again, a defense attorney is going to say, well, listen, my client didn't have it all together. My client was special, touched by an angel. My client's not all there, right? So in order to kind of get around that, there's certain questions you need to ask. You have to establish certain things, right? And you want to know where their mind is, where their maturity is, so that they can't use certain things against you during trial. You know? Sir, do you know what today's day is? Yeah. Oh, yeah, today's such and such. Okay, it's all right, cool. Do you know who the president is? Yeah, I know the president, such and such. Okay, cool. Who was the previous president? Right? What's your highest level of education? You know? Do you suffer from any medical problems? Do you have any medical issues? Have you ever been diagnosed with it? Like you're asking these things because you want to eliminate any potential problems. You know, anything. His age is going to be their greatest weapon they use for this case. Depending how good the investigators put their case together will determine how this case turns out, you guys. Just being completely honest. Right? Completely honest. You know, what's the defense going to say? Oh, he has a porch with no porch lights. How could he have known that the victim was black? It was 10 o'clock at night. There was no lights. He couldn't see anything. Right? He opened the door. He saw a dark figure. Right? You guys, these are the games they play. These are the games they play. So depending on how good these investigators interviewed him will determine a lot. That leads me to the next part, right? It took 4 days for them to put a warrant out and then to actually get him under arrest. To be honest, just on the surface level of this case, it looked very cut and dry to me, right? I mean, you still have to go and investigate. You still have to go and collect evidence. It takes time. It takes time. 2 days, yes. 4 days, no. I think that was way too long. And granted, that's me not even knowing all the details in the case, right? So I still have to make sure I preference that. But just to give you guys a better understanding, is it possible to have a case where you're working a murder or an attempted murder or an attempted high profile or high felony related crime, and the lead suspect gets to go home that day? You guys, yes, that happens all the time. All the time. I can't tell you how many times I actually had the suspect and had to release them and pick them up another day. It's not uncommon, right? So, but again, to the naked eye, it looks like that this was, you know, kind of like a racially profiled situation where you're like, well, he's old, he's white, we're gonna give him a little break. Not saying that's not possible, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, though, is that this is not uncommon. So I don't want people to look at it and say, well, it's because he's white, the reason why they did that. Which could possibly be true. But I'm saying that this also happens, and this is not uncommon, right? So for those who watch First 48, it's a perfect example, right? You see suspects all the time who they get interviewed and they get sent back home. They come back for a second interview, they get sent back home. All while detectives and people are collecting evidence and investigating and interviewing other people to get everything together before, because once you put the charges on, that's it, right? And you want to get it right the first time. So with this, you know, I believe it was the police chief. She was explaining like, hey, we need to gather evidence and all this kind of stuff or whatever. And you want to get statements and you want to find out the truth. You want to verify, right? One could argue, who's to say he wasn't trying to burglarize a home, right? So you want to make sure that you also can ensure that the victim is protected, so that the defense doesn't try to throw the case around and turn it into a circus. So granted, I think 4 days seems a little long. I'm not gonna lie. For this type of case, it's very obvious. You know who the victim is. He was shot on the doorstep. He ran to the neighbors and got help. You know who the suspect is. You know he had a gun. What else do you know? You know there was no forced entry. So there was no forced entry. Where's the threat? Now, was there an assault at the doorway? Well, the suspect said no, there wasn't. He said, immediately when I saw him, I shot him. I shot him. So it's cut and dry, you guys. It's cut and dry. So I'm curious to know why it took so long. I'm curious too. I think 4 days seems a little long. 2 days I think would be appropriate. You know, who else do you need to talk to? There were no witnesses. He had cameras around his house, but they weren't even on, right? So they did collect that. I don't know if any of the neighbors had cameras, but there were no witnesses. Who else do you talk to besides the victim and the suspect? And the suspect told you everything. You guys, lock him up. That's attempted murder. That's no self-defense, right? No self-defense. What did this guy say? He said the doorbell rang. He gets up. It's 10:30 at night. He gets his gun. I understand that. He goes to the door. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't exchange any words. He doesn't say, who is it? He didn't say what you want. He didn't say you have the wrong address. He says nothing. He opens the door. He says he sees a tall, black man. And guess what? He pulled the trigger twice. He didn't ask him anything. What do I see, you guys? I see a person who looked at a black-skinned person and felt he was a threat. You guys, that's racist. That's profiling. There's a racial component. He should be charged with a hate crime. So, I don't, it's sad. It's absolutely sad. And I think I've said it on this channel before. How powerful these type of conversations are when only in America, where the color of your skin automatically becomes weaponized as a threat. As a threat. You know, you can't dismiss that. Your skin color invokes fear in the minds of an ignorant person. What can you do? What can you do? You can't fix an ignorant mind or a wicked heart. You know, and you can't force the government to legislate people to love one another, not based on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. You can't create a law to do that. You know, it's unfortunate, you guys. You can't make people love each other. Ignorance is ignorance, no matter how you cut it. And a racist is a racist, no matter how you cut it. So, prayers out to Ralph. Strong young man, boy, to be able to go through all that, pick himself up off the ground and get himself to safety. Prayers out to him, to his family. And, you know, you guys just show your support. We'll stay on top of this, see how this turns out, you guys. Listen, thank you for checking out the channel. If you're new to the channel, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Check out the other content. I appreciate your support, you guys. And with that, good night. God bless.